Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the HSMAI Europe live show. So my name is Fiona, and today with our guests Martin and Monna, we're going to be exploring the beauty of focus in building a strong hotel brand. And we're going to be taking as an example the captivating story of the quintessential brand, Amerikalinjen, which is, of course, a beautiful boutique hotel in Oslo. Okay, but before kicking off the discussion, I just wanted to explain a few points. So as for all HSMAI events, I'd like to draw your attention to the special statement regarding antitrust, which you can see on your screen now. I'll not read it out in full, but I just wanted to remind everyone that certain topics are not proper subjects for discussions at our HSMAI gatherings. And we should keep in mind that some members may be competitors, and so certain subjects should not be discussed, such as room rates or terms of service. So moving on to the next slide, I'm happy to announce that starting today, HSMAI Europe will be hosting weekly live shows. So this is going to be every Tuesday at the same time as today, from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Central European time. And we'll be covering different topics. And next week, the topic is a 360-degree view, focus on cross-functional strategic thinking and expansion of traditional roles. So you can find more information about that next week's event on the HSMAI Europe website, and you can register there. Ingun also asked me to highlight that HSMAI will be focusing on the future. And that's why HSMAI have called this series Tomorrow Starts Now with HSMAI Europe. So the region is committed to growing business for the hotel, event, travel industry, and also their partners. And finally, as today's live show is focusing all on the whole world of branding, I thought that some of you could be interested in joining the HSMAI Europe Brand Strategy Masterclass. So this is a 5-week program starting on April the 21st, and it's going to be held every Wednesday afternoon. And I've been given a sneak peek preview of some of the content, and I can tell you it's going to be packed full of really practical information, inspirational content. I can highly recommend it. And what's more, it's brilliant. It's free for HSMAI members. So again, you can find more details on the HSMAI Europe website, so don't hesitate to go there to sign up. Okay, so let's get started with today's session. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Fiona Gillen. I'm a member of the HSMAI Europe Marketing and Branding Advisory Board, but I also head up marketing at Hotels Network. We're an innovative hotel tech company, and we're helping more than 10,000 hotels all around the world to grow their direct channel. So I've been working in marketing for over 20 years. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here today and to be able to join the discussion with two fellow marketers who are so passionate about branding, and as you'll see in the next hour. So first of all, I'd like to welcome Martin Andersen from Amerikalinjen. So thank you so much, Martin, for taking the time to join us today and share your story. You'd like to say a few words to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you for having me. I have to say your pronunciation of Amerikalinjen was spot on right there. I know you practiced quite a bit on that one, but no, I'm very pleased to be here to speak about one of my favorite topic, which is branding. And when you combine that with Amerikalinjen, which I had the honor of being on the opening team of, it's truly a great recipe. And my background is mainly from the US. I have been 13 years in the United States, working for larger corporations such as Hilton, with the Beverly Hilton and Waldorf Astoria, as well as with smaller independent hotels in New York. And I came home here to get ready to open this hotel. And today I oversee the commercial efforts at Amerikalinjen, as well as working on a joint commercial team with Nordic Hotels and Resorts, with our other 7 properties here in Norway.
Fantastic. So we're really excited to have you on board. I know that our team at Hotels Network work closely with your brand, and I know it's one of their favorite accounts because they say that your brand messaging is always so fresh and new, and your campaigns on the website. So we're definitely excited to hear more about the story behind this unique brand. Okay, so today we've also got Monna Nordhagen from Mars Branding. Monna, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. Could you say a few words to introduce yourself too, please?
Same, Fiona, and you and I are on the same advisory board, so we know each other from there. I'm a brand strategist, and I'm also a partner in Mars Brand Strategy, which is independent strategy consultancy. And what we do is that we work sort of in this super interesting twilight zone where brand strategy meets business strategy, and sort of fall in love with each other to create really sort of potent recipes for growth. So I'm also a author of a book called Rockets and Rebels, which is an anthology of the best branding tools and methodology, we think, to build brands in our time. And that's also the toolkit that we will be using, and I'll be one of the trainers in the HSMAI masterclass in brand strategy. And I really, really hope to see lots of people there. It will be fun. It's our third round now. People seem to love it, and you're going to learn a lot of how to build brands, great brands in practice.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you, Monna. So today as well, we want to try and make this as interactive as possible. It's what you said, Monna, is very important with the brand strategy you've been doing. And so if you've got any questions, any comments, don't hesitate to put those and ask those. If you're logged into your YouTube, you can write directly the comments on the right-hand side of your screen, and then we'll try and answer your questions as we go along. We'll not wait till the end to try and keep this as interactive as possible. Okay, I thought maybe to kick off the discussion, Monna, maybe you'd like to just say a few words about branding in general and just sort of introduce the topic to us.
I can, and I know everybody wants to hear from Martin, so I'll keep it really, really brief. But I thought it would be nice to start with, we have this French brand guru called Jean-Noël Capferret, who sort of we bow to 5 times a day. And he thinks about branding as a name with the power to influence. And I think that's a really great jumping off point to talk about branding. Because, you know, we used to think about brands as associations in people's heads. And there's nothing wrong with that. Brands are built in people's heads, but they don't really do much for you before they actually influence your actions or preferences or whatever sort of you need to happen. So whether it's for Amerikalinjen or anybody else, then I think sort of thinking about a brand as a name with the power to influence, that means sort of both that it's more than influencing customers, it's also people who might want to work with you, it's the ability to get the funding, it can be, you know, talking to politicians or whatever you like, partners, and sort of be somebody people want to be, you know, be part of the story. Part of your story, and also thinking about it as a name with the power to influence, it sort of squarely puts it on the strategic agenda, so that the branding is not something which sort of belongs in the communication or advertising department, but that it actually belongs on the strategic agenda for top management, which Amerikalinjen is sort of a great example where you sort of build brand and business all at the same time. So I think that's a sort of good place to start talking about brands.
It's perfect. So this is exactly why we invited Martin to join today. So maybe, Martin, this is the best time you could just tell us about the unique concept of your brand and actually the story itself. You know, how did it come around? And I know you've maybe prepared some visuals. It'd be great to share those as well, so that our listeners can really immerse themselves in this beautiful brand.
Absolutely, and I think it's. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible because the story can go on for hours when we talk Amerikalinjen. But I really want you to take a look at this picture and look a little bit about what you think it represents and what you think is happening. I'll get back to it a little bit. But the journey really starts back in 1905 when Norway is becoming an independent nation after union with Sweden. And throughout the last 100 years or so, or even longer, Europe has been going through wars and poverty, and it can be felt all over Europe. So since the 1860s, a lot of Norwegians have seen kind of United States as the land of opportunities, really, and left family and friends to start a new life over there. But in order to do so, they would have to take transportation from other major European cities. And with the independence from Sweden in 1905, there's a strong force to kind of create and establish a national shipping line between Norway and the US. And with the help of the Norwegian government, Gustav Henriksen was successful in launching the Norwegian American line in 1910. And finally, Norway had kind of established a shipping company, a national shipping company, 4 years prior to when Sweden had done it, which was a major victory. And finally, in 1913, the maiden voyage of Christianiafjord happened and left Oslo towards Bergen and then towards New York. And on board towards Bergen, just to illustrate how big of a happening this was in Norway, the whole Norwegian government and the royal family was on board, something that I'm pretty sure would not happen today. And then to the building itself in 1915, with the success of the Norwegian American line and the launch, there was a need for a headquarter in Oslo. And in 1919, this beautiful building was completed. And this is the renovated version, but this was the building that the passengers would come in. This was the ticket office, the hiring office, the luggage, and it carried a lot of big dreams. And if you go back to the picture that I just had up there, this is what it represents to me. It's the big dreams. It's a new beginning. It's hopes, really. And then going back to the building itself, here they arrived, and explorers, well, as we would call them, they had left everything they had at home in their hometown in the middle of Norway and spent their very last amount of money to buy a ticket to a journey that was really gonna give them new dreams and hopes. So between 1913 and the Second World War, about 500,000 passengers traveled with Amerikalinjen. And we say that almost 1 million Norwegians emigrated to the US between 1865 and 1930. Amerikalinjen, we say, created so many dreams and new beginnings for so many people. And in the 50s and 60s, Amerikalinjen was the main transportation between New York and Oslo until the airlines kind of shortened the trip out about 12 to 14 days. Up in the 70s. But a fun fact is, at the peak in the 50s, there was hundreds of thousands of Norwegians in Brooklyn, and in the Bay Ridge area of Brooklyn, the main language was actually Norwegian. So that was the interesting part of it. So from the end of the 60s up to the 80s, Amerikalinjen kind of took a different approach because the airline industry took over on the longer hauls. So it operated as a cruise line all over the world. So. And then since the 1980s, several kind of companies have had their offices in this building. And really it went into an era where it wasn't really noticed. So for me, born and grown up in Oslo, this was an area and a building that we kind of didn't notice, and especially an area that you didn't go down to until about mid-2000, 2005. 2008 when the Norwegian Opera House opened up and kind of made a whole new commercial area down here by Jernbanetorget. And today we like to say that you can't be in a more central location than you are here down at Jernbanetorget. So exactly 100 years after the building was born, we opened the hotel in 2019, and once again this building played host to a lot of new hopes and dreams. So we internally call that a full circle moment, where kind of the history comes back and repeats itself, and we know internally that we haven't done something that we feel is in line with our brand. So why do I spend so much time on this history? I could usually, as I said, spend like hours talking about this history, but it's really vital to the brands. Storytelling in itself is such a vital today in all brand building. And we knew that if we were going to create credibility and that we, in what we were creating, we had a responsibility to share the story about the journey that this building represented, because it really was a journey for so many people. We didn't want to create a museum, but a pulsating restaurant and hotel house for the modern day explorer, because that's what we really call the travelers that went abroad. We call them explorers. They left everything behind and took chances that nobody else would do. We wanted to create an urban hotel for locals and travelers, a meeting place for all ages and cultures, and a warm, eclectic and inspiring house in an accessible location that allowed our guests to immediate access everything that this fantastic city has to offer. So we commonly say internally that this is the perfect place to kind of start exploring our city of Oslo. The hotel has 122 rooms over 6 floors, beautifully designed and represented well through details. I want to just highlight one of these things on the middle picture here. On the walls there, we have items that we found during the renovation of the building. There's all old maps there from 1913. One of them is actually a weather map from 1912, which represents the iceberg situation in the Atlantic. And there's actually a mark on one of the maps where Titanic went down. So interesting things that we found in the wall. We also kind of mixed it up with some of some newer or modern day pictures of the area that we're located in. Other than that, lots of natural daylight in our room. We have these tall windows that creates that beautiful mellow space. And on the second and third floor, we're also lucky enough to have landmark ceilings that are kind of originals. And throughout the building, you'll find original features. Just want to touch in on a few of our outlets, because our first floor is really the heartbeat of the house. Atlas is really our vibrant and sort of playful casual brasserie, serving food influenced by all corners of Europe, really. And we really like to think that those are the cuisines that the immigrants brought with them into New York back in the days. Pier 42, sorry. Pier 42, our cocktail bar, actually just won Best Cocktail Bar in Norway, so we're really, really excited about that. Here you'll find cocktails that were famous on the ships, but really the major staple here is our concept menu, which is right now the decades of our history, where you'll find the cocktails inspired by major events which happened between 1910 and 2019 in Norway and the US. Here, we are actually changing the menu shortly as soon as we are allowed to serve again, and we'll have a menu called Contrast, which is kind of highlighting the contrast between New York and Oslo, Norway. So we're very excited to come with more details about that when time is right. In this bar, I want to highlight one of the things. Hadeland Glasswork actually made the glassware for the boats, the maiden voyage of Christiania Fjord in 1913. We took those champagne glasses and made replicas of them, and today you can sip on beautiful or fantastic cocktails in our bar from these glasses. So just a fun fact there. Our jazz club, Gustav, I will stop by Haven first. Haven is our courtyard in the middle. Here you really find some of the most mellow spaces in our hotel. These are original tiles from 1919 that you see in there. This was just kind of a back alley of the building, which we created, took a glass ceiling over it and created sort of all year round garden. Beautiful space, really highlighting the color in here, which was a big inspiration, this bright color. The windows in here kind of gives the symmetry of a huge inspiration for our brand, which was Wes Andersen. He's kind of like simplistic style with quirky and fun kind of approach we really saw in the Haven. And then Gustav, our jazz club, which is downstairs, really become a popular place for many locals. It's actually named after Gustav Henriksen, which I mentioned earlier, who was the founding father and CEO of Amerikalinjen. And the story behind jazz is that during the 50s and 60s, a lot of Norwegians traveled to New York to kind of experience some of those down under jazz clubs who had the big names. And in order to do so, they would have to spend 12 to 14 days on a boat to get to New York. And we actually talked to a few that actually paid with the ticket by peeling potatoes for those 14 days, just to spend the 2 or 3 days in New York to listen to jazz music. So, of course, we had to have a jazz bar, Fridays and Saturdays, live music downstairs, and a really, really hopping spot. One of the things that really built a brand for us was the collaborators, and it was a really important thing for us to have collaborators that we could identify with, their values, what they represented, and also their story. Hadeland was a given with their glassware that they brought to the maiden voyage. You'll also find lamps in our rooms that are done by Hadeland Glasswork. So. Really a great partnership there. Holtzweiler, which you see on the right side. Holtzweiler is a Norwegian designer, and here we find the ideal brand for our uniforms, who created a collection that we called People in Motion. The People in Motion represents the explorer that left their farms in central Norway, bought their tickets at the Amerikalinjen, and sailed over the Atlantic to arrive in New York 14 days later. That whole motion of travel, and really become a really good partner for us throughout our opening. You'll also see Red Cross there, and Red Cross we found a way to partner with them when helping them in their program assisting immigrants arriving in Norway. The whole story is built on Norwegians leaving Norway to start a better future, and today we play host to so many other world citizens that are coming to Norway to kind of start new dreams today. So that's another full circle moment there. So for us to be helping Red Cross and assisting them has been really a tremendous experience. I also want to highlight the Vista room, which you see on the left, middle left side there, which is sort of our temple stories. And this was a collaboration between Andersen Tech and the architect At Vos, who is the man behind some of the most successful libraries in Europe. And this is designed like a 1920s train cart, and it represents the first stage of sort of the journey for immigrants as they arrived in Oslo with the train. So really unique little oasis in there, and you'll find the small books about exploring and other things in New York and Oslo in there. So that kind of rounds up a short presentation of a hotel. As you probably can feel, I can go on for hours about it, but I try to keep it sort of short. So.
Thank you so much. I think what really stands out for me is the level of detail. It seems like every single detail, there's nothing there by chance, and everything links back to the original story. And it's the whole story. Everything's been woven into every single part of the experience at the hotel. I don't know, Monna, if you want to add anything now, or maybe Martin, we could go into sort of more the process, the actual process of how you created, or how your team created the brand.
Yeah. That's two things that sort of really stood out for me for this the Amerikalinjen concept. One is to take something which is sort of really, really old and historic, and then managing to put that into sort of today and sort of into a sort of very, very contemporary vibe, which really inspires everybody who works there, lives there. So sort of you have this thought of, as you say, sort of hopes, dreams, exploring, experiencing. That's not only sort of in the hotel, but also inspires people to, experience things outside the hotel. So I think that's sort of really amazing to take such a historic. It could easily come out as a sort of very historic hotel, but it's not. It feels super contemporary. And the other thing I think is great with Amerikalinjen is this consistent creativity. So again, being consistent is very often can, feel to creative people like a straitjacket. But it seems like you have in one way managed to be completely true to the brand DNA, and at the same time find new ways of exploring and expressing it, whether it's in the sort of names or the restaurant concepts or who you collaborate with. And it's so refreshing that it's consistent, it's creatively consistent, or consistent creative or something. It's not just consistent, and I think that makes it sort of so alive and gives it this sort of feeling that it's been like that forever. It just doesn't feel like it's something that's constructed. It feels like it's sort of organically grown to become this way.
Yeah, totally agree. It's because it's incredible. The brand's very new, but yet it does have that feeling of always having been there, no?
Yeah.
So Martin, do you want to take us through more, maybe thinking more about the process? Is there anything you wanted to add there?
Yeah, I can definitely. If you have a short visual there on the slide, if you can put that up. I think let me just change. I think that we really knew that when we took a 100-year-old building, we felt like the first stage was to research the stories. And I want to start off by saying that this was really a team that put their heart into it, with from Wilhelm to Caroline to Siri. And then we had the opportunity to work with some fantastic people over at Scandinavian Design Group, Niklas and Sunniva. And one of the first things that we did was to kind of sort of research the stories. And that was the most important mission, like 100 years of stories. We had to start from the beginning. What was this building and the foundation built on? And this research would take us on a journey, again, about those dreams and those hopes. We discovered that many people today sort of have the connection to the Norwegian-American line and sort of to the US in general. And that's a very powerful connection. The US to this day is still a very big dream for a lot of Norwegians. So the mission kind of, like from the beginning, the mission was really to connect this story to the brand that we were building and create a journey that didn't just involve a bed to sleep in or just like a fantastic shower, but to make the guests feel like they were part of something bigger, and really be part of the story. So we interviewed passengers, former employees, former captains of the ships we had in there. We actually had a reunion in there for one of the ships when we were building we were doing the renovation, serving them waffles. And from there, we worked with Scandinavian Design Group on a one-page platform that sort of would effectively communicate the brand and the mission. From what we are in the current situation, to our position in the market, the differentiation, and also who our sort of archetype is. And Monna can probably fill in more on that, but sort of the why are people motivated to have a relationship with us? And we talk about explorers quite a lot, and that's sort of our archetype and our identity then in the end. So we had to be simple in communicating, and it had to be something that everybody sort of could be on board with, and easy to kind of explain to everybody who's in the hotel. And we knew from the beginning that the DNA really came through the sort of the explorer, the immigrant who left all in search of a new life over there, and he or her kind of represented the arrow in our logo. So that's we knew from the beginning. So the arrow is then kind of representing the compass, and the compass then leads the way, always the right way. So and we sort of then created or as it's the Scandinavian Design Group then sort of created a logo that was easy to recognize and kind of stood very well on its own. And we also, as you see on the scheme there, we drew in colors that kind of are connected to some of the history that we found, but also some color like the pink, which is probably the color that we're most famous for now, which kind of represent the explorer, the bold, the moving towards the mainstream. So that was and the playfulness, really. The pink is really the playfulness. I want to tell you that in our rooms we have 2 pairs of slippers. We have blue, which probably many people will see as the masculine color, and then we have pink, which is probably a lot of people will see as the feminine color. But we sort of decided that the larger pair, the pink ones, are in large size, and then the darker color, the blue, is in medium size, so that the men have to go around the pink. So a little bit of quirkiness there. So so we had a lot of respect for the story, and we really wanted to create a house that could attract both the newly in love 20s lovebirds to the 75-year-old couple that just maybe are not kissing anymore, but really want to come down to just dance between the tables in the jazz club. So and then you have to have respect for that, because you really there's so many people that are being connected to this process throughout the 100 years. So we really had to have the respect for the history, and it was our kind of responsibility to connect this story to the modern day. Not a museum, as Monna mentioned, and not a copy of New York either, but a little bit of slice of New York in Oslo. And today we kind of know that this brand is #1 strong, and because it's so strong, we really have every opportunity to develop it further.
Perfect. Monna, do you have anything to add about from the process side of things? Is that something is that a similar process that you've seen other brands working on with agencies?
Absolutely. I think this thought of first making this one pager, or really sort of making this blueprint of what you want to build, and then actually setting out building it, and not that branding comes as an afterthought. You have architects working on the concept, and then you have, restaurateurs working on the food concepts, and then sort of at the end you go to an agency and they should make some colors and some logos and some stuff. But that it's the other way around. I think this thought that this really good idea, and Nordic Choice is really good at that, to first define the concept, and then everything else follows. And I think also a success factor for you, but you tell me if I'm wrong, Martin, but it feels like sort of the fact that you were the same people in both developing and the first sort of wave of implementation is, I think that's often a success factor, isn't it? Because again, it's so easy for something to be watered down or to be inconsistent. It's now it probably feels like it couldn't have been different, but you have taken like 10,000 decisions, and having that brand sort of inside you must have made a difference. I guess you sort of have you sort of felt what's right? So it gets more than intellectual after a while, doesn't it? It feels like sort of it's just come natural to you, or
It feels like a lifestyle. And I think that's to many of the people that are involved and have been involved. Some people have gone on to open other hotels for Nordic Hotels and Resorts, but I think that's really that passion is we've been lucky to have. Like when you are on a project, like let's say 2 years before the opening, you create an ownership and you create sort of a lifestyle, and it's not work, it's a hobby, right? So and that's what you really want to create, and then you're lucky enough to be part of the implementation of it, and sort of like helping out with making sure that the brand lives on.
And on that note, you have to have pretty strong top management backing, don't you? I can sort of foresee that again, this process takes years. And I think the concepts you have made are sort of really, really bold and strong. And I guess there will be, hundreds of managers or top managers or even owners who would like to sort of put their own stamp on it and like this or don't like that. But it's like you sort of had the backing of really staying true to your idea and not backing down on anything. So is that part of the culture, or, how does that come about? It seems like sort of nobody's been messing with your concept anywhere.
No, I think it's about trusting the process and trusting the people that you hire to do the job. Because if you don't have the trust, you haven't hired the right people. And I think that's one of the advantages that I think one of the some of the hotels that are coming in on the market and anywhere in the world really are struggling when the owners are too much involved in sort of dictating how the process is going to be. But really, those hotels that are investing in the research, in the story, really looking at what's behind, your credibility is just so much stronger, and that's going to gain you. Maybe not the day after tomorrow, but like in the long run. So it's all about sustainability for the brand too, right? So you want to create a journey that is sustainable in the long run, and the brand can survive through several periods, so to speak.
And Monna, do you have any? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we like to say that it takes like 100 days at least to make this blueprint, but then it takes 1,000 days to build the brand. But again, if you don't make the blueprint, then you can just about do anything. It won't come off strong anyway. So making first decide what you're going to build, and then go about building it seems to be a good idea.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say, Monna. Thinking about this, the importance of having a clearly defined blueprint. Can you think of any other brands who have created a strong brand by having this clear blueprint from day one that you would like to mention? Or?
Yeah, I think it's hard if you haven't been part of the process. Then I would just be boasting about my own clients, and I won't do that. Then it's hard to know, what brands made the blueprint before and who just evolved into it. But I think one of the brands that I think is really, really good and seems so fresh and lively is Oatly, the Swedish. They don't call it oat milk; they call it oat drink. But they are like the fast-moving consumer goods mythbusters in a way. They seems like these crazy professors that have made this fantastic drink that is they are fighting against this stupid idea that you have to feed the oat to a cow to get a great drink. They would much rather get the great drink from oat directly, and they have this quirky personality, and everything they do again seems so consistent and seems so sincere and authentic, and it's still very, very, very distinct. So I think they must have something in their DNA from the very beginning that that made it so, and also like a lot of great brands, then it's some people get it and the others don't, and it wouldn't surprise me if Oatly was fine with that. They have a really strong following, and then it's people who don't understand it,
but that's fine. That's fine. And so what advice would you give to, you think, today, the people listening in are hoteliers, and maybe they want to launch a new brand, or they want to rebrand an existing brand or property? I mean, where should they start? What are the basics?
That's that's hard.
$1 million question.
But I think at least I would start with category. That's probably my favorite topic, but that's the door into people's heads. So if you don't know what something is, then it's invisible to you. And I think Amerikalinjen is a good example of that. It's a classic boutique hotel recipe, but you have been able to make a fantastic version of a boutique hotel, adhering to the rules of what makes a great boutique hotel, but then making it so completely your own. And I think maybe that's one of the challenges for the hotel industry, that, yes, you are creating new hotel categories. Like I think Citizen M is a good example, who made this millennial style hotel. So I think they're breaking it into different kinds of categories, and say, what kind of a hotel should we be? And then decide on the rules for that, and then being distinct and either blending in with the culture you want to represent, or, the people you want to attract, or standing out from everybody else who's more bland in the same category would at least be a place to start. Because if you're not clear on that, then everything will mess itself up. So you need that as a starting point.
Yeah, I think clarity is one of the keys in it. It's a key starting point, and that's obviously what Martin and the team have. Yes, Martin?
I think also you need to like really live and breathe the brand. Like it's just not like creating something is fine to have it on the paper, but if you're not living and breathing it, it's sort of just all falls out. And that comes to like, it's not only like the visual designers or the management, but everybody is involved. I think one of the really fun things about Amerikalinjen is like you really felt it with the contractors that were renovating the building. I mean, even like the chief painter here who was working all the way up to like opening of the building, he had such a passion for the hotel and the history of the hotel and the connection. And I think he even ended up having his 50th birthday down in Gustav. So, and that's just, it might not seem so important, but it's really important for that full circle of your brand. And the guests, as in hotels, they can really feel it if everybody's invested and everybody's part of that DNA and has that DNA as part of them. And for us, it's the Explorer DNA.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, Martin. And I think that's also creating a strong brand platform, like you have this one pager that is well written and sort of well expressed so that people can get it. It's not a big manual, or it's not very complicated. It's easy to understand. And again, your concept very much sort of is again centers around this explorer archetype, which is about sort of individuality, about sort of finding what's right for you, and sort of a lot of things that talks to us when we are out traveling is fantastic. And we often have that discussion with our clients, is sort of how much do you share of your brand, the blueprint, and of your strategy. And I always say sort of you should share it, because again, all the people you work with, everybody you want to hire, everybody who's behind you, whether it's sort of financially or ownership or whatever, they need to know, because you need them to root for you, and sort of they need to understand. And they want to write themselves into your story. So sort of the more you can really expose it, the better it is. And nobody will ever be able to steal it from you, because nobody will be as good as being your own brand than you are yourself. So sort of go ahead, be a terrible copy, but you will always be sort of the original. So, being open, sharing, talking about it. I think some of the greatest leaders that we have worked with, they are so outspoken about their brand and their strategy. More than most. Again, they don't hide it. They flaunt it, which is much more fun.
Yeah, make people feel included, and then you have brand ambassadors really right there and then.
Yeah. And Martin, how do you ensure the brand consistency? Because from what I can see, you have incorporated the brand into absolutely everything. And maybe some people imagine that, I think, the experience at the hotel starts whenever the guest arrives at check-in, but we know that it starts a lot longer than before that, and it could be the first time they arrive on your website, or it's a much longer journey than that. And how do you keep that consistency across everything you do?
I think I kind of want to rest you there a little bit, because I really think we have a fine balance. I don't think we have the logo on everything, but I do, as I mentioned earlier, the idea was that the colors kind of could give it away, so that you don't always need the logo on everything you do. I have a visual there if you want to put it up there, but there are hotels that put their logo on everything. But for us we could use other strengths, as I mentioned. And today I think our pink color kind of like connects, like everybody kind of connects that with Amerikalinjen. And for us, it was sort of important to utilize areas that kind of can make a bigger impact, a wow that was clever moment, sort of to speak. Like for example, our umbrella, where we placed a sort of like old-fashioned map underneath, or the the D&D, do not disturb sign on the door, where we have sort of quirky messaging, the Amerikalinjen beer, the pre-arrival letters, because as you said, like the journey really starts from the moment the customer or the guest finds us in the e-commerce channels. Exactly. And then, you have to kind of keep that expectation going through the whole process, from the booking to the confirmation letter, to the pre-arrival, to the arrival, and then all the way until the guest kind of arrives at home, and make sure that they are coming home with a memory of a new journey. So and then we do everything we try to do is not necessarily logo everything, but everything we do, we kind of connect it to the brand, as Mona was mentioning. And, you know, I mentioned the concept menu in Pier 42, beautiful example of a connection to the story of Amerikalinjen, or the bagels in Atlas Brasserie, which are, we have the little bakery, which we sort of had a soft launch on now. Bagels were actually brought to New York by Polish immigrants. And for us, that was a really natural thing for us to bring in to our food and beverage scene as a new concept. And everything kind of ties back to the storytelling and then the foundation of our house.
Martin,
Exactly.
we have a question from Per Morten Horr, I think it's. He says it's a great balance between classical architecture and contemporary hotel. Yeah, oh, here it is. It's something that clients and guests value. And do you manage to get them to pay for it?
I'm sorry, can you repeat just the first part of it?
I think it's on the screen. Can you see it?
Okay. Yeah, let me just see.
So there's a great balance between classical architecture and contemporary hotel. Is this something clients and guests value? And do you manage to get them to pay premium for such a quality product?
Yeah. I think that I think it's a huge value for the guest, and they really want, as I said, they wanted to come into a hotel that wasn't a museum, but sort of more at a contemporary hotel. But then when they see the details that we kind of kept in the hotel, there's always a wow moment when they come in. So there's definitely a value to keeping that in there, and we get it mentioned a lot.
Because that's one of the things I was going to say. Does having this strong brand, is that like a springboard for the hotel and the results? Because I know that you guys reached #1 hotel in Oslo and TripAdvisor, you know, at an incredibly fast rate, very short space of time. So having these kind of positive brand messages, does that have an impact on the actual results of the hotel?
Absolutely, it has a huge impact, and I just wanted to kind of like sum up with the brand consistency. Like nothing of this is happening, if the leadership team is kind of policing the brand. It has to be in every sort of link in the hotel, and we see a lot of customer feedback on both through our direct channels and also the ones we get through TripAdvisors. And from the moment they find us on the web and through a campaign or whatever it is, through the booking, through the pre-arrival, they really see the link and they see the story and they see the kind of expectations that are coming with it. And for us, we deliver on those expectations, and that is a huge value. And I think TripAdvisor in itself is just all about expectations. I think if you look at some of the major cities in the world, I think you would maybe think that a Ritz-Carlton or a Four Seasons or the 5-star plus luxury hotels are the ones that would rate highest there. But it's not the case, because the expectations are so high that they fail to deliver. Whereas if you go to New York, Hotel Giraffe, I think, which I don't know how many people have heard about it.
The Library Hotel Collection, yeah.
They've been delivering top 3 for years over in New York. Yeah. So and that's sort of because of the journey that they and expectations that they have created. So I think for us, that's been a huge asset. The whole story, the whole brand, the storytelling, and that we have invested in every link in the hotel are part of that journey. And then again, as we go back to it, every concept that we have in there is connected to that storyline that it's easy for the guests to see. And it goes back to the brand platform that Mona was mentioning, the one sheet page, that it's easy to communicate internally, and then it's easy to communicate it externally as well. And the guests easily see what the journey is about.
And I guess expectations is also a lot, it's not just expectations for quality. It's a lot about when you travel, it's a lot about what stories you get to tell back. And I think that's also one of the strong concepts or strong parts of the way you're sort of orchestrating everything, is that, again, as you say, whether it's the umbrella, the slippers, you make sure, or the fact that the people in the hotel, the people, your employees, they know a lot. I know that they are really encouraged to use Oslo so that they can give good advice where people should go, and inspire them to do something they haven't done before, and sort of again, explore and do new things and create new experiences. And I guess coming back from having been on the travel and having 20 great stories to tell rather than sort of 3 great stories to tell is an absolute asset. And it's not in the sort of quality in the sense of high, low quality. It's more in the sense of creating something valuable, which is sort of over and above and in addition to any quality level at all. But it's something that people want.
Exactly. And so Martin, obviously there was a very strong brand, but I would imagine that as all the hotels, unfortunately, this past year, you've faced incredible challenges as our entire industry has. And did you find yourself having to adapt your brand strategy, having to adapt your marketing strategy to, based on what was going on in the industry around us?
Most definitely. I think that going into COVID, we had a very protective brand sort of attitude, and going into as we entered COVID, we just had to kind of change it to sales. It was a sales mentality that kind of trumped everything, and we have been forced to close and reopen a few times the hotels. Amerikalinjen has had a flexible approach, but what we have seen is clearly that hotels with strong brands such as the Thief in Oslo, Farris Bad, which is a leisure spa hotel, and Amerikalinjen, they have a journey, they have a brand, and that they have delivered overall really well throughout this extremely difficult year. And I'll be the first one to say that we have done things that we hope we never will do again, and they probably didn't teach us those in hotel schools. And then there's also experiences that we hopefully will take with us, or we definitely will take with us throughout the process, such as non-alcoholic cocktails and serving floating bartender cocktails through our brunch. And then in the end, I also want to mention that it's really, I also have to admit that it's been really hard to keep the brand consistency in a crisis. It's hard to keep that sort of line between selling and jeopardizing the brand. But I think we managed to stay on the line, but you have to checks and balances at all times throughout a crisis as well. And the stronger brands have really excelled through the crisis, I think.
But I think even the campaigns that I saw, for example, on your website, even if it was something that you maybe wouldn't normally have done, like I think it was for Black Friday or something, there was a really powerful campaign which was obviously focused very much on sales, but it was done in such a way, and the communication on the website and the design of the messaging was 100% on brand and just done in a slightly different way, in a quirky way, that made it stand out from a sort of a typical Black Friday sale or whatever. So I think that you managed to walk that tightrope and to adapt as you had to, as everyone, we've all had to adapt to the situation, but still maintaining your unique brand values.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to just creating your, this year has had, there's no market shares. You have to create your own market shares, and Black Friday was just one of those. And everything that we do, we try to tell a story when we're selling something now, because you try to create that demand at the moment.
But isn't that a lot what brands do then? I mean, people, or our brains, interpret brands a lot like we interpret people. And people are a bit different, when you're out partying with the guys or girls, and when you're at the funeral, or in the job interview, or here or wherever. And I guess in a crisis, you're allowed to go into crisis mode. You would as a person, and then again, maybe you would not be your best self always. But it's people will say that's okay because we know you wanted to. Save your children, or, it's okay to be sad or burnt out or whatever. So I guess it's allowed. And as long as people feel it's consistent, it's still the same core personality or the same sort of, again, DNA, then it's okay. I don't think we should be so afraid of that. It's we're used to that as people, that people change, with time, with circumstance, with relationships, and that's okay.
So I think we've all learned that this year, no? That it's okay to change and we have to be flexible. I'm just conscious of time. I'm just saying we've only got 5 minutes left. So this is a very difficult question for each of you, and I hope you can answer it. But if you had one piece of advice to give to the hoteliers listening today about branding, what would it be? And the question is for both of you, but whoever feels that they could answer that, feel free to jump in.
Well, I'll just jump in with, I firmly believe it's the people. So your ambassadors, your storytellers, like that's the most important thing, that you plant that from the brand, from the first interview throughout the whole process of hiring, and then on the onboarding and all that stuff. And like that's really where you establish your brand in my eyes. So hire the right people and they will be your best ambassadors.
And I couldn't agree more, but I'll sort of add to that and saying that therefore you need really to make sure that building the business and building the brands are two sides of the same story, and that you really have, defined what you want to build, because that makes you hire the right people who, not only are able to, but, doesn't want to do anything else than make this brand come alive. So I agree a lot with you, but I think, again, it's useful to have this thought of what it's going to be, because then from that, again, this is the springboard from where all your decisions derive, also who you hire, whether it's partners or employees or whatever. So, have an idea what you want to build and then get great people to help you build it.
That sounds good. And Martin, what are the plans for the future for the Amerikalinjen brand? Is there anything in the pipeline, or are you waiting to see how things evolve with COVID?
I think there's the great thing with the strong brand is that you can always develop it, and how you have a strong brand, you can develop in any directions that you want, as long as it ties in with the story. So I think the first thing right now is once the country opens up again and the borders open up, is to take a step back and look at the brand and what we have been doing, and you just thoroughly go through and make sure that you're on board with brand, with the hiring, with everybody's on board, with all the material in the rooms, with your campaigns and everything. So just taking a step back will be our first thing. And then we have some exciting things that we're working on, if it's comedy nights, or which ties into the sort of the New York feel, or the floating bartender's new menu in Pier 42, which we worked with the Scandinavian Design Group on. So we have a lot of good concepts coming up, and taking one step by a time.
Sounds good. Okay, so I literally could talk to you two about branding for an extra couple of hours, and preferably over a glass of red wine, or Martin, one of your non-alcoholic cocktails sound pretty good to me too. But unfortunately, we're running out of time, so I'm going to have to sort of bring our live show to an end. But I really do hope you've enjoyed the discussion as much as we have. I would like to thank the HSMAI Europe team for all the work behind the scenes, for bringing this, putting this together today, making this possible. Also, a huge thanks to Monna. It's great to have you here and share your insights after your vast experience. And I know we're going to be hearing from you soon, no? With the
sign up to the masterclass again. It's free for all HSMAI members. Join the team. Join the league of people who build strong brands.
Sounds good. And then, of course, a special thanks to Martin for, I know how busy you are, so I really appreciate you taking your time to join us today and to share this fascinating story around the Amerikalinjen brand, and with so much passion. I think if there's one thing that we all took away from this today, it's the importance of passion of the people that work with the brand in order to build that strong brand.
Great. It was great being here. And as you said, we could talk for hours.
I look forward to it. Once we can actually fly out of Spain again, I will try to get on a flight and come over to Oslo.
Yes,
sounds good.
Me too. Thank you, and hope to see a lot of you again. And
okay. So
thank you.
Thank you to all our listeners, and we hope to see you again soon. Remember, we've got our weekly HSMAI Europe live sessions. We'll be continuing on as of next week. A reminder, next week's topic is about cross-functional strategic thinking and the expansion of traditional roles. Okay, thank you, everybody. Take care and see you soon.
Thank you.